What if it were possible to see sound? Imagine for a moment that sound, this invisible dance of waves that surrounds us all the time, were no longer something we simply hear, but something we can see. Something like a painting in motion, materializing before our eyes, challenging the limits of what we understand about the world around us. If suddenly it were possible to observe the vibrations traveling through the air, what would they reveal to us? How would the world look if words, music, and even silences could be represented visually, as if each sound were a color, a shape, a flowing line in space? It's strange to think that until now, we've only been able to hear the sounds around us but never see them. Sound is a wave, a disturbance in the air that travels from point A to point B, captured by our ears and processed by the brain. It comes to us as a sensation but remains invisible to the eye. What if we could visualize these waves as if they were something tangible? What would this mean for us, for our perception of reality? Perhaps the first thing that would surprise us is the complexity of sound. If we could see it, we would realize that it's not just a simple noise. Each beat, each vibration would have its own form, color, and intensity. Imagine that the sound of a piano was not just a series of notes reaching our ears, but a spiral of light unfolding in space, beginning shyly and expanding, taking over the entire room. Or that a conversation between two people wasn't just a back and forth of words, but a dance of colorful waves interlacing and disintegrating as the sentences are spoken. Isn't it fascinating to think that sound could be a choreography of lights, a symphony of colors instead of just acoustic vibrations? Of course, for this to happen, the world would have to be very different. Our perception of reality would be profoundly and perhaps irreversibly transformed. Today, sounds are given by us as a subjective experience. They are perceived within our bodies as a process that takes place inside. But if sound were visible, we would start seeing the world in an entirely new way. Environments would become richer, more complex. The simple act of hearing the wind could be like watching a river of particles flowing through the air. A stream not only reaching our ears, but filling the space around us. There's something poetically paradoxical in this concept, because sound, by its very nature, is ephemeral, fleeting. It exists only while it's produced and soon disappears. If we could see it, maybe it would be like looking at a wave on the ocean. The shape manifests for a moment and then dissolves, but the impact of that wave on the water is eternal. Sound, being transient, could teach us something about the fleetingness of existence, how everything we perceive as real dissolves constantly, whether in the form of a sound wave or in the life itself. To explore this concept, we can ask, what would make the perception of sound richer? If the frequencies of sound were visible, perhaps high-pitched sounds like the treble of a violin would appear as thin, fast-moving lines, almost invisible, curving through space, leaving trails of brightness. The lower frequencies, like the sound of a drum, could present themselves as wide, slow-moving waves, almost heavy, pulsing like a wave, spreading across a surface, displacing molecules around it. Music, for instance, would no longer be just a collection of notes fitting together, but a landscape of forms that emerge and transform as the notes intertwine. Perhaps the pauses, the silences, would have their own visual language, not simply an absence, but a gap that leaves room for other forms to manifest. But let's take it further. What if sound wasn't the only thing revealed to our eyes? The movement of sound is, in fact, the movement of air molecules, an invisible dance that's captured by our ears. But what if somehow it were possible to see not only the sound, but also the vibration of the objects producing that sound? The surface of a drum, the string of a guitar, the diaphragm of a speaker. Each of these surfaces moves in its own unique way when emitting sound. If we saw this, perhaps we would understand reality differently, as if we had access to a parallel universe of sensations and perceptions. And society, how would it react to this new perception? We live in a world where communication is essentially auditory. We speak, we listen, we share ideas. But if we could see sound, how would it change our language? Perhaps the words we speak would take on new dimensions, and the act of talking would no longer be just a verbal exchange, but a visual exchange, where the shapes created by sound waves would have their own meaning, a kind of visual grammar. Sound would no longer be just a tool for communication, but a sensory language, richer, deeper. Seeing sound could become a metaphor for understanding others better, the visualization of intentions, emotions, the truth behind words. Now, if we take this idea into the realm of technology, we could ask, what would happen if we could create devices that allowed humans to see sound? Imagine special glasses or even cybernetic implants that would make sound waves visible, revealing their paths through the air. This could open up a vast field for new forms of communication, new ways of creating art, and perhaps even new kinds of music. Electronic music, for example, could be created not just with sounds, but with visual forms of sound, where musicians draw their songs on a virtual stage, allowing the audience to see the music in ways they never imagined. However, at the same time, this ability to see sound might make us more sensitive to it, more aware of its omnipresence. Because sound is made of vibrations, and vibrations don't stop. They are always around us, in the walls, in the windows, in the floor, even inside us. Sound, which has always been an invisible companion, would become a visible presence, constant and uninterrupted. And perhaps in doing so, we would be forced to confront how saturated we are with sound, how deafening the world can be when it becomes completely visible. Silence, which was once only the absence of sound, might gain new importance. It could become the most precious of all states. In the end, perhaps the question isn't whether it's possible to see sound or not, but what we would do with that vision. Sound, like light, has the power to reveal the world around us, but if we could see it, maybe it would reveal something deeper about ourselves, about the way we perceive reality, about how we interact with time and space. And what if sound wasn't just a sensation, but a window to the universe? What if seeing sound was the key to understanding the secrets of our very existence? And so perhaps the true mystery isn't the sound we hear, but what it tells us when we finally start to see.